Imagine stepping into a Hawaiian rainforest for a quick hike, leaving your phone, wallet, everything in the car, just a short walk. Hours later, you're completely lost, deep in thick jungle, no path out, no food, no shoes. No one hears your screams. 17 days, broken leg. Feet so infected, doctors talk about amputation. Helicopters fly overhead dozens of times, but never spot you. She chose to live. When everything screamed, give up. This is the true story of Amanda Eller. And the most unbelievable part is just beginning. Stick around. You won't believe how it ends. Amanda Eller's story is a powerful tale of survival, resilience, and the unbreakable human spirit. On May 8th, 2019, this 35-year-old physical therapist and yoga instructor from Haiku, Maui, set out for what she intended to be a short, mindful hike in the Makawao Forest Reserve, a place she knew well and often visited to connect with nature. What began as a routine day of self-reflection turned into an extraordinary 17-day ordeal that captured global attention and ended in a miraculous rescue. Amanda left her home around 7:30 a.m. after a brief meditation session with her boyfriend, Benjamin Konkol. She drove her white Toyota RAV4, license plate LZ110, to the Haiku market, where surveillance footage captured her purchasing an energy bar and boxes of dry tea. She wore a light-colored tank top, dark yoga pants, and black flip-flops, slippers. Around 10:19 a.m., she stopped at the Haiku post office to mail a Mother's Day package to her family on the mainland. By approximately 12:12 p.m., her vehicle was spotted in the gravel parking lot near the Hunter's Trail entrance to the Makawao Forest Reserve, observed by off-duty Maui Fire Department personnel who were hiking in the area. Amanda parked, left her cell phone, wallet, water bottle, and other belongings in the car, intentionally disconnecting from technology to immerse herself fully in the natural world. She stepped out for what she believed would be a brief 3-mile hike or jog along familiar trails. The Makawao Forest Reserve on the northern slopes of Haleakala is a lush, rugged expanse of dense rainforest, steep ravines, waterfalls, and thick undergrowth. Trails like Kahakapau and Hunter's Trail wind through it, but venturing off-path can quickly lead to disorientation amid boar trails, flash floods, and impenetrable vegetation. Amanda followed her internal guidance, what she later described as a voice, spirit, or gut instinct that drew her deeper into the forest. She left the main trail, intending to explore and return. But the paths she followed were not the maintained hiking routes. They were animal trails that twisted and narrowed, pulling her farther from her starting point. Hours passed, and the trail she thought would loop back did not. She realized she was lost. The next morning, May 9th, Benjamin grew concerned when Amanda didn't return home. He reported her missing to the Maui Police Department around 7:21 a.m., providing details of her favorite spots, including the Makawao Forest Reserve. Police located her RAV4 in the parking lot that day. No signs of struggle, her belongings intact inside. The search began immediately. The first night, May 8th, set the tone for what was to come. After realizing the animal trails she had followed had no intention of looping back to the main path, Amanda stopped moving as darkness fell. She gathered ferns and broad leaves to create a crude bed and shelter against the damp ground. The Makawao Forest Reserve, with its high humidity and frequent rain, offered no mercy. She practiced deep breathing from her yoga training, focusing on gratitude for the air in her lungs, the sound of the stream nearby. I wasn't panicking yet, she would explain in hospital interviews. I thought, Okay, I'll find my way out in the morning. Morning came, but clarity did not. Amanda drank from the flowing stream. She knew stagnant water could harbor bacteria and searched for food. The forest provided sparingly: wild strawberry guava, thimbleberries, other small fruits she recognized from her time living on Maui. She ate insects when hunger sharpened, moths that fluttered too close, perhaps a few grubs. It wasn't glamorous, she admitted later, but it kept me going. Hydration was her priority. She stayed near water sources, aware that dehydration would end her quickly in the tropical heat. By day 3 or 4, the accident happened. While attempting to navigate a steep ravine, Amanda slipped or fell about 20 feet down a ledge. The impact fractured her left tibia. A clean break, she later learned, but excruciating. Pain shot through her leg like fire. She couldn't stand fully. Crawling became her only option. Soon after, a flash flood roared through the area, sweeping away whatever footwear she had left. Barefoot now, her feet tore on rocks, thorns, and roots. Sunburn blistered her exposed skin. An infection set in rapidly: cellulitis that turned her feet swollen, red, and burning. Yet Amanda assessed her own body with the knowledge of a physical therapist. She used her hands to stabilize the broken leg as best she could, elevating it when possible, and kept moving despite the agony. "I had to choose life," she said in her first press conference on May 28, 2019, at Maui Memorial Medical Center. There were times of total fear and loss and wanting to give up. It did come down to life and death, and I chose life. I wasn't going to take the easy way out. She drew heavily on her spiritual practices. Meditation kept her mind steady when despair crept in. Yoga poses, adapted for immobility, helped circulation and pain management. She described hearing an inner voice, not auditory hallucinations, but a deep gut instinct or spiritual guidance that directed her movements. "It was like nature was speaking to me," she explained, telling me where to go, when to rest. She followed streams downhill, believing they would lead to civilization eventually, even as the terrain grew more treacherous. Helicopters buzzed overhead repeatedly. Maui Fire Department, Civil Air Patrol, private pilots. Amanda waved branches, shouted until her voice cracked, but the dense canopy acted as a green ceiling. "I could hear them, but they couldn't see me," she recounted. "As the helicopters are passing over and not seeing me, I'm invisible. You lose hope, and your hope meter starts to decline a little bit." In those moments, she returned to gratitude for the water, for the fruit, for the fact that she was still breathing. Days blurred. She lost track of time, but estimated she had been moving downstream for over a week when she reached the area near the Kailua Reservoir, wedged between two waterfalls in a deep ravine. Food grew scarcer. She survived on minimal calories, dropping 15 to 20 pounds. Malnutrition weakened her, but the river water and occasional fruit prevented total collapse. She slept under ferns, enduring rain that soaked her through, insects that bit relentlessly, and the distant grunts of wild boars. Through it all, Amanda's background as a physical therapist and yoga instructor proved life-saving. She understood anatomy enough to avoid worsening the fracture, managed swelling as best she could, and used mental discipline to push past pain. Her expertise in the human body helped her treat herself in the field. Rescuer Troy Helmer later told Today. That's a big part of why she survived. While Amanda fought for survival deep in the ravine, the world above her refused to let her story fade into silence. From the moment Benjamin Conkle reported her missing on the morning of May 9, 2019, a massive grassroots response unfolded, one that exemplified the spirit of Ohana, or family, that defines Hawaii. What began as a routine missing person report quickly grew into one of the largest volunteer search efforts Maui had seen in years. The Maui Police Department and Maui Fire Department launched the initial search immediately after locating Amanda's white Toyota RAV4 in the gravel parking lot near the Hunter's Trail entrance to the Makawao Forest Reserve. Officers confirmed her belongings were inside. No signs of foul play, no struggle. Just the quiet evidence of someone who had stepped out intending to return. Ground teams, including search dogs, drones, and hikers familiar with the area, swept the main trails and nearby ravines. But the dense rainforest, with its steep drops, thick undergrowth, and frequent flash floods, made progress slow. After 72 hours, official organized efforts by police and fire were scaled back due to resource constraints and the low probability of survival without supplies. This is where the community stepped in. Friends, family, and strangers refused to accept that the search was over. A Facebook page titled Find Amanda, later renamed Found Amanda, was created almost immediately by close friends like Sarah Haynes. It exploded in popularity, amassing thousands of followers who shared flyers, coordinated volunteer shifts, and posted updates. The page became a central hub for information, encouragement, and mobilization. To fund the extended search, covering helicopter time, equipment, food for volunteers, and more, a GoFundMe campaign was launched. It raised nearly $80,000 from donors around the world. Much of the money went toward contracting private helicopters for aerial searches, paying for fuel, and supporting ground operations. Leftover funds were later used for safety improvements, such as installing cameras at trailheads in the Makawao Forest Reserve and other popular hiking areas on Maui, ensuring better prevention and response for future incidents. Amanda's family arrived from the mainland shortly after the disappearance. Her father, John Eller, an expert in GPS technology and mapping, brought his professional skills to bear. He used specialized software to create live maps of the search area, tracking where volunteers had already covered ground and identifying gaps. Teams equipped with GPS devices logged their paths, filling in a digital grid of the forest. This methodical approach, John later said, helped clear large sections efficiently and allowed searchers to push farther out, ultimately to the area near the Kailua Reservoir where Amanda was found, about 4 miles from her parked car. Hundreds of volunteers poured in daily. Hikers, rappellers, equestrian groups, canine teams, and even the mother of another missing person on Maui joined the effort. Trained survival experts and locals familiar with the terrain led grids. Among the key figures were Chris Bergquist, a 33-year-old arborist and volunteer coordinator who managed GPS data and ground teams. He spent long days in the forest, analyzing incoming tracks and briefing searchers. Javier Cantelops, a 37-year-old former Special Operations Army Ranger, scuba instructor, and friend of Amanda's. He had taught her diving. His military background and knowledge of the island made him invaluable in rugged terrain. Troy Helmer, another experienced volunteer who knew the Makawao area well and brought practical insight to the searches. The Facebook page and social media kept the momentum alive nationally and internationally. News outlets like CNN, ABC, NBC, and local Hawaii stations covered the story daily. A $50,000 reward was announced to encourage tips. Celebrities and everyday people shared posts, amplifying the call for help. Not everything was smooth. As days stretched into weeks without a sign, speculation and rumors surfaced online. Some questioned whether Amanda had gotten lost intentionally, was involved with drugs, or had staged the disappearance for attention, or GoFundMe funds. Reddit threads and comment sections debated her story, with skeptics pointing to her calm demeanor in hospital interviews or the fact that she left her phone behind. Amanda addressed these directly in later reflections. Anything you could think of that could possibly explain how I could come out of a 17-day experience like that and be in a positive state of mind. I think that people just created stories so that their mind could grasp the situation. She emphasized telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and the toll the rumors took on her emotional recovery. Rescuers like Cantaloupes fielded even wilder questions, such as whether she had been hiding out at his house the whole time. The controversy faded as facts emerged, but it highlighted how public attention can cut both ways, bringing help while inviting doubt. Through it all, the Aloha spirit prevailed. Volunteers braved rain, heat, and dangerous drops. Family members like Amanda's mother, Julia Eller, spoke of the despair setting in around day 14, yet they never quit. Nobody ever quit, rescuers later said. John Eller's GPS expertise not only aided the search but inspired lasting change. He helped found STAT, Search Tech Advisory Team, a nonprofit advising on search and rescue efforts using technology for missing persons in rural areas. Chris Berquist continued working with STAT, calling the rescue the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. As the helicopter circled that final afternoon, the combined efforts of technology, volunteers, donations, and sheer determination converged. Spotters saw movement in the creek bed below. Amanda waved weakly from the ravine she had called home for her last days. The moment of discovery was electric. The crew's excitement shook the aircraft, and pilot Voorhees had to steady them. They lowered the rescue basket, and Amanda, battered but alive, was lifted to safety. In that instant, the outside world's persistence met Amanda's inner resolve. The search had not been in vain. The afternoon of May 24, 2019, was drawing to a close when the helicopter's rotors thundered low over the deep ravine near the Kailua Reservoir. Pilot Pete Voorhees had already burned through most of the fuel on repeated sweeps of the Makawao Forest Reserve. The light was fading fast, shadows lengthening across the waterfalls and thick green canopy. Inside the aircraft were 3 determined volunteers: Chris Berquist, Javier Cantaloupes, and Troy Helmer, men who had spent weeks in the forest, refusing to believe Amanda was gone. They were on what they had quietly agreed would be their final pass for the day. Fuel was critical. Sunset was minutes away. As the helicopter banked around a bend between 2 cascading waterfalls, Berquist spotted something unusual in the creek bed below. A small figure, barely visible against the rocks and water, waving one arm weakly. "There she is!" he shouted over the noise. The crew erupted in cheers. The helicopter shook with their excitement. Voorhees had to bark at them to calm down so he could maintain control. From Amanda's perspective, the sound of rotors had become a cruel tease over the preceding days. Helicopters had flown overhead so many times she had lost count, each one passing without stopping, leaving her feeling more invisible than ever. But this time was different. The aircraft descended lower than before, hovering directly above her spot in the ravine. She raised her arm as high as her exhausted body allowed, waving with everything she had left. Her heart pounded, not just from fear or pain, but from a sudden, overwhelming surge of hope. The rescue team lowered the basket. Amanda, barely able to stand on her fractured leg and severely injured feet, crawled the last few feet to reach it. Rescuers helped guide her in. She was light, frail, covered in dirt, scratches, and burns. Once secured, the basket rose smoothly. Cantelops, who had known Amanda before the ordeal through diving lessons, reached out and pulled her into the helicopter. The moment their hands met, he later described it as the greatest moment of my life. They hugged her tightly as the aircraft climbed away from the ravine. Amanda was alert and oriented during the short flight to Maui Memorial Medical Center. She knew exactly where she was, remembered her father's phone number, and could recount how many days she believed she had been missing. 17. When the helicopter touched down at the hospital helipad, medical teams were waiting. She was transferred to a stretcher and rushed inside for immediate evaluation. The initial assessment revealed the full extent of what she had endured. Her left tibia was fractured, a clean break from the fall off the ledge, but the real concern was her feet. Severe cellulitis had set in from repeated exposure to water, thorns, rocks, and infection. Both feet were swollen, blistered, burned from sunburn and constant abrasion, and riddled with deep cuts. Doctors openly discussed the possibility of amputation if the infection could not be controlled quickly. She had lost between 15 and 20 pounds, was severely dehydrated despite drinking from streams, and showed signs of malnutrition. Sunburn covered much of her exposed skin, and she was covered in insect bites and minor abrasions from head to toe. Intravenous fluids, broad-spectrum antibiotics, pain management, and wound care began immediately. Surgeons cleaned and debrided the worst areas on her feet, working to save as much tissue as possible. Over the coming days, the aggressive treatment worked. The infection receded, circulation improved, and amputation was avoided. Physical therapists started gentle mobilization almost right away, knowing that early movement would be critical for her fractured leg and overall recovery. On May 28, 2019, just 4 days after rescue, Amanda appeared at a press conference from her hospital bed, propped up and surrounded by family and medical staff. Her voice was soft but steady, her eyes bright despite the fatigue etched on her face. She spoke directly to the cameras and the community that had never stopped searching. Thank you to everyone who has been involved in the search and rescue efforts, she began. The sense of pulling together, that sense of community, that sense of ohana and family. True aloha. I'm so grateful. She addressed the physical and emotional toll without sugarcoating it. There were times of total fear and loss and wanting to give up, she said. It did come down to life and death. And I chose life. I wasn't going to take the easy way out. She described the experience as a spiritual boot camp, not to romanticize the suffering, but to acknowledge how her practices of yoga, meditation, and deep inner listening had helped her endure. It was truly a miracle, she added, of being found, a needle in a haystack. Amanda also clarified some of the rumors that had circulated online. She explained that leaving her phone behind was intentional, to fully disconnect and be present in nature, something she had done many times before on shorter hikes. She denied any suggestion of foul play or intentional disappearance. I got lost, she said simply. I followed my gut, and it led me deeper into the forest than I expected. Her father, John Eller, stood beside her, visibly emotional. He thanked the volunteers, first responders, and the Maui community for their relentless effort. We never gave up hope, he said. And because of all of you, we didn't have to. In the days that followed, Amanda remained in the hospital for wound care, IV antibiotics, and physical therapy. She began the long process of learning to walk again on her injured leg. Friends and family visited constantly. The Found Amanda Facebook page transitioned to celebration mode, filled with photos of yellow ribbons tied around trees, thank you notes, and messages of love. The rescue itself became a symbol of what coordinated effort and compassion can achieve. Pilot Pete Voorhes later said the moment they spotted her was one he would never forget. Chris Berquist called it the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. Javier Cantalopes spoke of the hug in the helicopter as a moment of pure relief and joy. Troy Helmer emphasized how Amanda's own knowledge and will to survive had bridged the gap until help arrived. Amanda's first words upon being found, according to rescuers, were simple and profound. Gratitude for the water that kept her alive, for the fruit she found, for the inner voice that guided her, and most of all, for the people who never stopped looking. Intravenous fluids, broad-spectrum antibiotics, pain management, and wound care began immediately. Surgeons cleaned and debrided the worst areas on her feet, working to save as much tissue as possible. Over the coming days, the aggressive treatment worked. The infection receded, circulation improved, and amputation was avoided. Physical therapists started gentle mobilization almost right away, knowing that early movement would be critical for her fractured leg and overall recovery. On May 28, 2019, just 4 days after rescue, Amanda appeared at a press conference from her hospital bed, propped up and surrounded by family and medical staff. Her voice was soft but steady, her eyes bright despite the fatigue etched on her face. She spoke directly to the cameras and the community that had never stopped searching. Thank you to everyone who has been involved in the search and rescue efforts, she began. The sense of pulling together, that sense of community, that sense of ohana and family. True aloha. I'm so grateful. She addressed the physical and emotional toll without sugarcoating it. There were times of total fear and loss and wanting to give up, she said. It did come down to life and death, and I chose life. I wasn't going to take the easy way out. She described the experience as a spiritual boot camp, not to romanticize the suffering, but to acknowledge how her practices of yoga, meditation, and deep inner listening had helped her endure. It was truly a miracle, she added, of being found. A needle in a haystack. Amanda also clarified some of the rumors that had circulated online. She explained that leaving her phone behind was intentional, to fully disconnect and be present in nature, something she had done many times before on shorter hikes. She denied any suggestion of foul play or intentional disappearance. I got lost, she said simply. I followed my gut, and it led me deeper into the forest than I expected. Her father, John Eller, stood beside her, visibly emotional. He thanked the volunteers, first responders, and the Maui community for their relentless effort. We never gave up hope, he said, and because of all of you, we didn't have to. In the days that followed, Amanda remained in the hospital for wound care, IV antibiotics, and physical therapy. She began the long process of learning to walk again on her injured leg. Friends and family visited constantly. The Found Amanda Facebook page transitioned to celebration mode, filled with photos of yellow ribbons tied around trees, thank you notes, and messages of love. The rescue itself became a symbol of what coordinated effort and compassion can achieve. Pilot Pete Voorhes later said the moment they spotted her was one he would never forget. Chris Berquist called it the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. Javier Cantelops spoke of the hug in the helicopter as a moment of pure relief and joy. Troy Helmer emphasized how Amanda's own knowledge and will to survive had bridged the gap until help arrived. Amanda's first words upon being found, according to rescuers, were simple and profound. Gratitude for the water that kept her alive, for the fruit she found, for the inner voice that guided her, and most of all, for the people who never stopped looking. Amanda also maintained strong ties with her rescuers. She stayed in touch with Chris Berquist, Javier Cantelops, Troy Helmer, and pilot Pete Voorhes, men who had risked their safety to find her. They met for coffee, shared stories, and occasionally hiked together on easier trails. They saved my life, she said simply, and I want them to know how much that means. The bond became a source of mutual healing. Rescuers often spoke of how finding Amanda had reaffirmed their commitment to volunteer work. Her father, John Eller, channeled his experience into lasting change. Using skills from the search, he helped establish STAT, Search Tech Advisory Team, a nonprofit dedicated to improving search and rescue operations through technology, GPS mapping, data sharing, and coordination tools for missing persons in rural areas. Amanda supported the effort, speaking at fundraisers and sharing her story to raise awareness about the importance of preparedness in nature. By 2024, 5 years after the ordeal, Amanda had returned to Maui full-time. She continued her work as a physical therapist and holistic practitioner, helping clients navigate their own recoveries. Her feet had healed, though she still carried scars and occasional pain as reminders. She hiked again, but more mindfully, always carrying a small pack with essentials and telling someone her route. The Makawao Forest Reserve remained a place of beauty for her, not fear. She occasionally returned to the area near the Kailua Reservoir, not to relive the trauma, but to honor the place where she chose life. In interviews marking the 5-year anniversary, Amanda reflected with quiet strength. It was the hardest thing I've ever gone through, she told ABC News, but it taught me how resilient we are, how much we can endure when we choose to keep going. And it showed me the incredible power of community, the aloha that never gave up on me. She spoke of gratitude as a daily practice, gratitude for the water that sustained her, for the fruit that nourished her, for the inner voice that guided her, and for every person who searched, donated, or simply sent a prayer. She emphasized that survival is not just about the body, it's about the mind and spirit refusing to surrender. Amanda's story had become more than a survival tale. It was a testament to human connection, inner strength, and the possibility of transformation through adversity. She continued her work quietly, helping others find their own way back to wholeness, just as she had found hers. Amanda Eller's 17 days in the Makawao Forest Reserve did not end when the helicopter lifted her away. In many ways, that moment marked the beginning of a deeper journey, one of reflection, integration, and sharing what she had learned with the world. Her story, grounded in the raw facts of survival and rescue, has become a quiet but powerful reminder of what it means to choose life when everything seems lost. At its core, Amanda's experience teaches that survival is multifaceted. It is physical, the knowledge of hydration sources, the recognition of edible plants, the discipline to keep moving even when every step brought agony. As a physical therapist, she had an advantage in understanding her body's limits and how to protect the broken tibia while minimizing further damage. But survival was also mental and spiritual. She repeatedly credited her yoga and meditation practices for keeping despair at bay. When hope faded with each passing helicopter, she returned to breath, to gratitude for the smallest things: a sip of stream water, a handful of guava, the fact that she was still drawing air into her lungs. "I chose life," she said plainly in that first hospital press conference, and she chose it again and again in the quiet moments when surrender would have been easier. The story also highlights the profound role of community, what Hawaiians call aloha and ohana. Thousands of strangers, friends, and family refused to let her vanish into the statistics of missing persons. Volunteers logged hundreds of hours in dangerous terrain. Donations funded helicopters and equipment. John Eller's GPS expertise turned chaos into coordinated grids. Rescuers like Chris Bergquist, Javier Cantalopes, Troy Helmer, and Pete Voorhes risked their own safety on that final low-fuel flight. The Find Amanda Facebook page and GoFundMe became lifelines, not just for resources, but for emotional momentum. Amanda has said many times that the love and persistence from the outside world matched her own inner resolve. That sense of pulling together, true aloha, she told reporters. It was not one person's miracle, it was collective. Her legacy extends beyond personal healing. The ordeal prompted practical changes on Maui. Additional trailhead cameras, improved search protocols, and greater awareness of the risks in places like the Makawao Forest Reserve. John Eller's work with STAT, Search Tech Advisory Team, continues to help other families by advancing technology in missing person searches. Amanda herself has used her story to support trauma recovery. Through her holistic physical therapy practice, mind-body certifications, and yoga teaching, she guides clients facing their own hardships, accidents, loss, chronic pain, emotional wounds. She emphasizes that healing is not about erasing what happened, but integrating it, finding meaning, and emerging stronger. In the 5-year reflection shared with ABC News in May 2024, Amanda spoke with a calm maturity about how the experience reshaped everything. She had left Maui for a time, spent months in India for advanced trauma training, returned to the mainland, and eventually settled in Minneapolis, where life felt brighter and steadily improving. She revisited the forest in late 2020 as exposure therapy, walking familiar paths with a new respect for their power. "Nothing has been the same since," she said. "It changes your whole life." Yet she described the change as ultimately positive, a deeper appreciation for connection, presence, and resilience. Amanda has never claimed to be a hero. She insists the story is simple. She got lost, she suffered, she survived, and she was found because people cared enough to keep looking. She expresses ongoing gratitude to the rescuers. "They saved my life." To the volunteers, "They never quit." To her family, "They held hope when I couldn't." And to the broader community, "Your aloha carried me." She has addressed the skepticism and rumors that swirled online with honesty, clarifying that her decision to leave her phone behind was about intentional disconnection, not deception. "I tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth," she has said, acknowledging that the experience took an emotional toll, but refusing to let doubt overshadow the facts. As her story reaches people through videos, articles, and word of mouth, it serves as a beacon for anyone facing their own dark ravine, whether literal or metaphorical. It reminds us that hope can endure even when visibility is zero, that inner strength can be cultivated through practice, and that no one is truly invisible when a community decides to look. Amanda Eller chose life in the forest, and in the years since, she has chosen to live it fully, helping others, honoring her scars, and carrying forward the lessons of gratitude, resilience, and connection. In the end, this is not just a tale of being lost and found. It is a testament to the human capacity to endure, to the power of collective compassion, and to the quiet miracles that happen when one person refuses to give up and when many others refuse to stop searching. Thank you, Amanda, for sharing your truth. And thank you to everyone who made her return possible. And that, dear friends, is the incredible true story of Amanda Eller, 17 days lost in the heart of Maui's wild forest, 17 days of choosing life over surrender, and a beautiful reminder that miracles can still happen when hope refuses to die, and when people come together with true aloha. If her story moved you, if it reminded you of the strength we all carry inside, or if it simply left you feeling a little more grateful for the people and the moments in your own life, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this time with me, for listening all the way through, and for letting these real stories of survival and reunion touch you. Your attention, your comments, and your support mean everything to me and help keep this channel alive. If you'd like to hear more happy ending stories like this, more tales of people who were missing for weeks, months, years, even decades, only to be found alive and reunited with the ones they love, please consider subscribing right now and turning on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Every new subscriber helps me continue sharing these powerful, uplifting real-life miracles. Drop a comment below. What part of Amanda's story touched you the most? Have you ever had a moment where you had to choose hope over giving up? I read every single one and love hearing from you. Until the next story of Light After Darkness, thank you again for being here. Take care of yourselves, hold your loved ones close, and remember, you are never truly alone. See you in the next video. Aloha.